Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of this F1 24 Driver Career Mode with myself driving for RB in our second season in the sport. Max Verstappen claimed victory in the last episode for the Austrian sprint race, with Leclerc and Norris joining him up on the sprint podium. Myself ended up finishing in P6 after getting early damage and staying out on the intermediate tyres after the rain had stopped towards the end of the sprint race. We got the damage from a pretty dodgy rejoin from Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari. But we'll move on to the main Grand Prix, the main event, where Lando Norris took his first win of the season in Austria. Myself, we took a P2 after very early battles with Charles Leclerc, but it was Fernando Alonso who took P3 instead, and Max Verstappen leads the Drivers' Championship now by 42 points to Lando Norris. George Russell, he's in third, 87 points behind. Myself now move up into P4, 22 points behind Russell. Daniel Ricciardo, he's P16, 2 points behind Valtteri Bottas, and Red Bull are leading the constructors by 38 points to McLaren. Mercedes, P3, 107 points behind, and RB, we find ourselves 17 points behind Ferrari in P6. And we're going to go straight on to a upgrade here in the powertrain. It's a major upgrade, and it's an engine power upgrade, and we're going to just do the standard development as we have done for a lot of the developments previously, since that will be on the car for the next race with a 0% failure rate. So definitely going to take advantage of that. And taking a look at the weather forecast, it looks like it's going to be a wet British Grand Prix this weekend with a dry qualifying, which will probably shake things up and probably see, we'll have to have a look to see how the car's feeling in practice. And speaking of car performance, Red Bull still have the fastest car, but McLaren and Sauber, they have made massive gains. Sauber have actually now become the third fastest car on the grid as they leapfrog Aston Martin in performance. Mercedes, Ferrari and RB not bringing any upgrades this weekend, but Alpine have brought some upgrades to pull away a little bit from the bottom two, being Williams and Haas, as we get straight into qualifying.
Welcome along everybody to a venue that was built for speed. Once an airfield, now one of the finest racetracks in the world. It's qualifying day here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix.
And before we get this session started, unfortunately, we've had to take an engine penalty for having to take an extra controls unit after we lost one at the Australian Grand Prix when we had that engine failure. But moving on to the start of our first flying lap, all the times are starting to flood straight in as the first flying laps are being completed of the session, and we get held up by Sergio Perez. In our heated rivalry, we're blocked by Sergio Perez on our first flying lap. We do have to go around and do another attempt at this lap. So as we come to the end of the lap, coming onto the Hamilton straight, and it is going to be P6 for now. So not sure if that's going to be good enough for the cutoff. So we go again, still on the same set of tyres as well, by the way. You can see I filled up the car for a couple of flying laps, but I wasn't expecting it to be blocked, and we make a bit of a mistake there going through the turn 4, and we'll once again make another mistake coming through Cops, and this time we'll end in a spin, and that is surely going to be it for this set of tyres. 2.5 flying laps maybe were done on those tyres, so they're definitely well and truly worn. Max Verstappen's fastest in qualifying, won by 200s to Lando Norris. Charles closed third, 600s behind, and so it's very close between the top three. Daniel Ricciardo is in 11th, and myself in P12 just behind. And knockdown qualifying 1, Alex Albon, Logan Sargent, Lance Stroll, Nico Hulkenberg and Zhou Guanyu not making it into this next session of qualifying as we come around to the end of our first flying lap here in qualifying 2. And where is this going to put us? Dumping the ERS to the line, and it's going to be P6, 3/10 behind the next driver as we do another flying lap here. And we can see they're getting a bit taily on the exit there as we mount the curb just a little bit, and it was enough to unsettle the car, and we'll go P5 this time around, 2/10 behind Fernando Alonso. So we are a little bit off the pace, but I'm sure we can fix this. We'll go around for a third flying lap here on a brand new set of tyres this time around, this time not clobbering that inside curb there going into the chicane, and we will go P3 here in qualifying 2, so a pretty decent lap there. Lando Norris is fastest here in Q2 by 10th to Fernando Alonso, ourselves in third, and then knocked out in qualifying 2, Valtteri Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon, and both Mercedes at their home Grand Prix have been knocked out here in qualifying 2, with Russell ahead of Carlos Sainz. And we'll go straight into our first lap here in qualifying 3. Lewis Hamilton setting the pace very early on. We're going to go through turn 4 and we're going to spin it on the exit. We got onto the AstroTurf and maybe probably a little bit of grass as well, and that was enough to unsettle the car on our used set of tyres here. So we're going to go out now on a brand new set of soft compound tyres, and this will be our only flying lap here in qualifying 3. So where will it put us? I reckon on the steering wheel there it does say P4, and so that's a second row start for us if we didn't have the engine penalty. So Max Verstappen's on pole position for the British Grand Prix ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez, making it a Red Bull 1-2 front row lockout. Oscar Piastri is in third, 4 tenths behind, and myself would line up P4 if it weren't for the engine penalty.
Welcome everyone as you join us at a former Second World War aircraft base, now converted into one of the great motor racing tracks. Britain is one of only 2 countries to have held a Grand Prix in every year of the Formula One World Championship, and long may that continue. This is Silverstone, and this is the British Grand Prix. Silverstone circuit then is 3.6 miles long, has a total of 18 corners, and of course is no stranger to the rain. There won't be any DRS available in these conditions, but the Wellington and Hangar straights are still good opportunities to tuck into the slipstream and make a pass. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Oscar Piastri, Norris, Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Gasly, Bottas, Ricciardo, Ocon, Russell, Lightning, Sainz, Albon, Sargent, Stroll, Hulkenberg, and Zhou Guanyu. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. And alongside me in the commentary box, my old friend, Anthony Davidson. Now you're the racing driver in this partnership, so tell us about this racing driver. Put us in their shoes. How are they going to be feeling?
Well, you've got to be prepared, Crofty. Before you even step foot inside the car, you've got to know, you've got to have a pre-race game plan. You've watched videos before you get into the car of previous races gone by. You know where you have to place your car if X, Y, or Z happens in front of you or behind you. So having this clear game plan is absolutely essential before you get in the car.
Mate, I really got the taste for that champagne last time out, so let's see if we can keep that momentum up and bring another bottle home.
Well, so Mark, he's got some he's got some high hopes for this race if he expects us to be getting on the podium from down here in P14. I'm hoping to at least try and get some points. You can see there from the strategy, it is going to be wet weather tyres all the way through, but on the weather radar, it is saying there is going to be a dry patch on the way, so hopefully we can survive to then, and we are off for the British Grand Prix here in Season 2. It's a pretty mediocre start for myself. We're focusing to the front though, because it is Max Verstappen who's cleared away ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. We're taking evasive manoeuvres to try and stay off the back of Esteban Ocon there, and it's the field will now concertina up coming into turn 3, so we'll go down the inside, just a little bit of side-by-side contact there with Ocon as we continue through, going side-by-side with him, and we're going to try and get the power down better than him now. We're on the racing line, although now it is wet. The racing line generally isn't usually the one that you want to be on. Our teammate Ricciardo ahead of us getting very taily as he comes out of turn 5 and coming down the Wellington straight. We're currently in a side-by-side battle with Ocon, so we're going to look to his outside as we come into this little stadium section now, and we're just not going to be able to get the move done. So we're now going to look at trying to show the nose just a little bit as we continue to come out of this little section here now, and we're just not going to get the power down. A lot of wheel spin on the exit, but moving on to lap 2 now, the field is still very much bunched up, so there's a bit of a concertina effect. I wasn't really going for a move here, but we go to the outside of Carlos Sainz now, which will give us the inside now for turn 4, and that is going to be us now up into P14, going onto the Wellington straight. Once again, you can see there the exit still not looking too good, and here's a replay now of George Russell as he was able to make up a move at the same time as well. That looks like it was a mistake there from one of the Saubers, probably a lockup that allowed him to get through, and it would have been Valtteri Bottas, as Russell is once again making more moves, and this is going to be him now moving up into P9. He'll take a look as they go into Stowe, and that is going to be the British driver now up further inside the top 10. We're getting our next objective, and it is going to be passing Ocon before lap 10, and I think that's going to be a bit of an issue there, because we tried to get the move done on Ocon. We weren't able to get it done, and he is now driven 2 seconds, now 3 seconds up ahead of us. So that is probably going to be a little bit more difficult to get done. And you can see that our dry line is starting to form, and some of the drivers may be looking now to possibly go onto the intermediate tyres, because my strategy said to go to wets till the end, so we'll have to sit here and see what tyres Piastri is going to go onto, and it is going to be the green wool intermediate tyres. So a lot of the field seeming like they're going to be trying to take this gamble and go onto the intermediates. I am now setting the intermediate tyres. I am really struggling onto these wets. As you can see there, I just cannot get any grip whatsoever as the track continues to dry and I'm on these wet weather tyres. So we lose a position now to Carlos Sainz, and that is now us into P12. We've gained a few positions in the end due to the pit stops, but we now will peel into the pits a couple of laps later, as we didn't want the double stack behind our teammate. Daniel Ricciardo has come in for the inters as well, and so since we didn't want the double stack, we've dealt with it for an extra lap. So I reckon in the end, in hindsight, I reckon I probably should have just come in and double stacked behind Daniel for the intermediate tyres. But we are in the pit lane now, and we will pull in and get our stop done for the intermediate tyres. I'm not sure if this is going to be our only stop just yet, because with how quickly the track is drying, we could very well get into a dry period. But we'll do an auto check now. So it's Max Verstappen leading the way by 8 seconds to Lewis Hamilton. Then it's Lando Norris rounding out the podium, followed by Fernando Alonso, Charles Leclerc, Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell, who's making up some ground. He's now up into P7 after getting knocked out in Q2. Then it's the Sauber of Valtteri Bottas. Then Esteban Ocon rounds out the points. Carlos Sainz in P11 ahead of the two Williams of Logan Sargent. Then Alex Albon. Then it's Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, Lance Stroll down in P16. Then it's the Haas of Zhou Guanyu in P17. Then you'll find the two RBs, Daniel Ricciardo leading myself, we're in P18 and P19, and then it's Nico Hulkenberg. He's currently the last driver on the road, 1.6 seconds behind myself. As we jump back on board with ourselves here, Daniel Ricciardo, he's going to set the fastest lap of the race so far on the intermediate tyre, so they are definitely the tyre to be on at the moment, and will set the fastest lap now, and that is going to be it's a good sign for us to try and see if we can't make up any positions. But you can see I am still very much struggling for grip and going through turns 1 and 2. We've got our next objective now, and that is to keep the tyre wear down for a little bit, which I'm a little bit confused about getting this one, because I am not intending on being on these tyres for very long. It's probably going to be a very short stint before any sort of dry period comes. I'm hoping a dry period starts coming sometime soon, because we've got a lot of pace in the dry that we showed in qualifying. The two Alpines are now battling it out and going through Stowe. It looks like it's going to be Esteban Ocon that gets himself now up into P9 ahead of his teammate Pierre Gasly, and that is going to be a battle to keep our eye on going forward, because those two will just be in a DRS battle now. But we've got Stroll here slowing down the Wellington Straight, and that is going to be him pulling off. So Stroll's day has come to an end. One of the teams based here, they're actually based here in Silverstone, so the home team has had an absolute shocker ending their race so soon, and we've had an absolute shocker because we've failed our tyre wear objective. So we're definitely showing a lot of tyre wear at the moment, as this track pretty much looks dry, but the intermediates still seem to be the way to go, and there are definitely still some teams out there running the wet weather tyres, as Oscar Piastri makes a move on one of the Alpines there, so he's now splitting the Alpines, as Lewis Hamilton is now in the pits. Is he going to be boxing for dry tyres, or is it going to be the intermediates, and then the AI are going to be pretty much telling us that in wet weather tyres on what looks to be a bone dry track is still the way to go? What is he going to be doing? It looks like the Mercedes crew there has got hard tyres, and the Ferrari has put on hard tyres as well, so it looks like they're possibly going to the end. We have followed him into the pit lane, so has quite a few drivers actually, and we're going to be boxing for a set of medium tyres. I've gone for a gamble here to essentially do the next 10-ish laps as a small sprint session, a quick 10-lap stint on the mediums. I feel like the hard tyres towards the end of the stint probably could be the way to go, since this track's got a pretty high deg. But I'm going to go for the mediums. I need to do something different here if I want to try and at least get some points. The two Williams now, they're battling now. They're still on the full wets. Still on the full wets. It's a completely dry track, and they're both now going to come into the pit. So they're going to be double stacking. Logan Sargent is going to be the victim of that. He's going to hurt quite a bit going down the timing orders, as now Sergio Perez is looking to get himself ahead of Pierre Gasly. This will put him up into P9, and he'll get the move done before they even reach the braking zone to stow here. So a very easy move to get done now. As Lando Norris, he's looking to take second position away from Lewis Hamilton. He goes to the inside of Brooklands, and that is going to be the move done for Lando Norris, and he will take P2 away from Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton, though, still set for a first podium with Ferrari, and what a place to do it here in Silverstone in front of his home crowd, as that's Carlos Sainz. He's looking to get himself now up into the points as well. So both Mercedes, after being knocked out in Q2, both find themselves in the points. So they've had a pretty good recovery now to get themselves up into P6 and P10 respectively, as Yuki Tsunoda is now looking to get himself ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas. He goes to the inside of Brooklands, which will give him the outside of Luffield, but hopefully he can now get the power down on his exit of the corner, and he can try and get himself ahead of Valtteri Bottas, which it looks like that he is done. But Valtteri not in the slipstream, so I wonder if he's got a nose in. No, he doesn't, as they come through Cops. It looks like all is settled, and it is Yuki Tsunoda ahead of his teammate. For ourselves now, well, we've got our next objective, and we need to achieve an average lap time, which is a pretty good objective to actually receive right now. We're currently a bit of no man's land. Well, I say no man's land. We are chasing a 6-second lead that Alex Albon has got over us, but we have just enough pace to stop Nico Hülkenberg from getting any advantage using the DRS, as Oscar Piastri now gets himself up into P10, and that is now both Alpines outside of the 10. But that will not last for very long, because Oscar Piastri, he's not quite in the DRS of Sergio Perez, which leaves him vulnerable to Esteban Ocon, who does now have the DRS off of Oscar Piastri, and so they're able to swap positions once again. But Fernando Alonso, he's caught up that deficit that he had to Lewis Hamilton. It was about 3 seconds when Hamilton got overtaken by Lando Norris, and Hamilton has now fallen off the podium. Hamilton has lost that glory of first podium with Ferrari in front of his home crowd, as Esteban Ocon, he's found something in the Alpine, because he's now got himself ahead of Sergio Perez to get himself up into P9. It was just a few laps ago I was saying they have both fallen, both Alpines have fallen outside of the top 10, and now Ocon has found himself into P9 as we complete our average lap time objective, but that is not to matter, because Max Verstappen is going to be coming around the final corners, and he's going to cross the line, and he will take a very dominant victory here in Silverstone. It's a 7-second win over the home driver of Lando Norris, and he will cross the line to take P2. Fernando Alonso, he will take P3 away from Lewis Hamilton, but it is disappointment for us.
There was no Verstappen. Max Verstappen. He takes victory.
To do it as a team on home soil, that really means something special, and you can see how much it means to them, the drivers involved as well. Great job by them today, of course, as always, but for the fans watching on too, a great display of teamwork here today.
The drivers are en route to the podium as we speak. What a fantastic win for the Red Bull team. They performed exceptionally today, keeping us firmly on the edge of our seats throughout the entirety of the race. Congratulations to everybody at the team.
Max Verstappen is absolutely back to his winning ways. He had a sprint win in Austria, but was robbed of a Grand Prix victory with a pretty shocking qualifying, starting dead last. Norris takes P2, and Fernando Alonso is back onto the podium for ourselves. We just had absolutely nothing that worked for us. No strategy worked, the setup didn't work, just whatever it was with the wet weather, it just didn't work for ourselves. So it was a very, very disappointing weekend for us. The rest of the top 10 was Hamilton, Leclerc, Russell, Tsunoda, Bottas, Perez, and Ocon. Ricciardo ended up P15, myself P16, so a pretty shocking weekend in the end for RB. Max Verstappen leads the Drivers' Championship by 49 points to Lando Norris. George Russell, he's in third, 104 points behind. Myself, currently 6th position, 7 points behind Charles Leclerc. Daniel Ricciardo finds himself in 16th, 3 points behind Alex Albon, and Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship by 47 points to McLaren. Mercedes are in third, 126 points behind, and RB, we find ourselves in 6th position, 37 points behind Aston Martin. So Aston Martin and Ferrari have swapped positions for our driver ratings. Our experience, racecraft, awareness, and pace have all gained points. Our focus has lost some points, but we've got an overall of 89. And our recognition has actually jumped up to 60%. So something good has come out of this race weekend. We have gained recognition considering the absolute shocker that we've had. So we have now unlocked that third lot of R&D secret upgrades, which is an absolute massive bonus for this episode, so I'm sure to have a look at those in the next episode when we're having a look at the upgrades. And if you did enjoy this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode for the Belgian Grand Prix.